key turned with a satisfying click, the brass cool against my palm. My new apartment was finally mine. Sunlight streamed through the expansive windows overlooking a bustling city street, painting stripes across the hardwood floor. It was everything I dreamed of: modern, airy, and full of potential. I inhaled deeply, letting the scent of fresh paint and possibility fill my lungs. Over the next few days, boxes overflowed into every corner as I unpacked my life. Furniture found its place. Lamps cast warm glows on empty walls waiting to be adorned with art. I hung a tapestry depicting a whimsical forest scene, a splash of color against the stark white walls. It felt like home already, even if it was still strangely silent. The silence wasn't necessarily unsettling at first. I enjoyed the quiet after the chaos of moving day. But as days turned into weeks, it began to morph into something more than peaceful. It became an absence, a thick blanket muffling every sound except the hum of the refrigerator and the distant rumble of traffic. It started subtly, the rustling of curtains when no wind blew, a faint scratching behind the walls, like tiny claws scrabbling against plaster. I dismissed it as settling noises, the creaks and groans of an old building finding its equilibrium in a new resident. My rational mind told me there was nothing to fear. Then came the dreams. Vivid, unsettling dreams filled with shadowy figures flitting at the edges of my vision. They never quite coalesced into clear forms, remaining wisps of darkness that clung to the periphery, just out of reach. I'd wake up gasping for air, heart pounding, a lingering sense of unease clinging to me like cobwebs. One evening, while preparing dinner, I noticed something peculiar. The tapestry on the wall seemed different. Its vibrant colors appeared muted, almost washed out. The whimsical forest scene now looked strangely somber, the trees gnarled and skeletal against an oppressive, overcast sky. I rubbed my eyes, convinced it was just fatigue playing tricks on me. But when I looked again, the image hadn't changed. A chill ran down my spine despite the warmth of the apartment. The unsettling change in the tapestry gnawed at me, whispering doubts into the quiet corners of my mind. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe the lighting was different, or perhaps my imagination was running wild after those disturbing dreams. But a prickle of unease lingered, refusing to be dismissed. That night, sleep evaded me. I lay awake, listening to the silence amplify every tick of the clock and creak of the old building. My gaze kept drifting towards the tapestry, now seeming to pulsate faintly in the dim light filtering through the window. It was as if the colors themselves were breathing, shifting ever so subtly. Then I noticed it, a change in the room itself. The walls felt closer, not physically, not in a way that could be measured, but perceptibly different. The space seemed to have contracted, shrinking around me like an encroaching tide. The familiar layout of my apartment now felt cramped, claustrophobic. Panic clawed at my throat. I swung my legs out of bed and stumbled to the window. Gazing down at the street below, I tried to ground myself in reality. People bustled about, oblivious to the unease that gripped me. Cars honked, sirens wailed, a symphony of urban life that should have felt comforting. Instead, it only served to heighten my sense of isolation within my own apartment. Days blurred into a haze of anxiety. I started seeing things flicker at the periphery of my vision. Shadows dancing in doorways when no one was there. Shapes shifting in the corner of my eye. The air itself seemed to crackle with an unseen energy, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. Sleep offered no escape. The dreams intensified, morphing into vivid nightmares where I was trapped within the apartment, pursued by those nameless figures from the edges of my waking visions. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, gasping for air, convinced that something sinister lurked just beyond the realm of sight. Desperate for reassurance, I called my best friend, Amber. Her voice, usually so bubbly and reassuring, sounded strained over the phone as she tried to offer comforting words. She suggested seeing a therapist, attributing my anxieties to stress from the move. But even as I listened, a part of me knew it was more than just stress. Something was undeniably wrong in my new apartment, something insidious that was slowly warping the boundaries of reality itself. Amber's suggestion to see a therapist lingered in my mind, but I couldn't shake off the growing conviction that this was something beyond mental strain. The apartment felt alive, not in a friendly way, but with a palpable presence that seemed to watch and wait. It wasn't just the visual distortions and phantom movements. It was an oppressive stillness that hung heavy in the air, broken only by the unsettling whispers I began to hear. They weren't audible words, not decipherable sentences, more like rustling sighs on the wind, barely perceptible murmurs at the edge of hearing. Sometimes they seemed to come from within the walls themselves, a faint scratching accompanied by a whispery sigh. Other times, they seemed to emanate from empty corners of the room, as if something unseen were just beyond my sight, breathing softly against the silence. Driven by a compulsion I couldn't quite explain, I started spending more time exploring the apartment's nooks and crannies, hoping to pinpoint the source of these whispers. I checked every vent, every crack in the walls, every dusty corner, convinced there must be a rational explanation. Faulty wiring, drafts, perhaps even hidden speakers from previous tenants. But I found nothing. My investigation led me to the attic, a cramped space filled with cobwebs and forgotten furniture. A lone window looked out onto the cityscape, its glass frosted with age. As I stood there, examining dusty boxes crammed into every corner, the whispers intensified. They swirled around me, growing louder, swirling in a dizzying vortex of soundless voices. A wave of dizziness washed over me. The attic seemed to close in, the air thick and stagnant. I turned to leave, my heart pounding against my ribs. But the floorboards beneath my feet creaked ominously. A section gave way with a splintering groan, sending a cascade of dust and debris down upon me. Panic surged through me as I scrambled back, tripping over a forgotten trunk. My eyes darted around the shadowy attic, searching for an escape route. But the whispers had intensified into a deafening roar, pressing against my eardrums like invisible hands. The air crackled with energy, making the hairs on my arms stand on end. As darkness threatened to engulf me, I caught sight of something in the corner of my eye, a flicker of movement just beyond the reach of the dim light filtering through the grimy window. It wasn't human, not anything I could comprehend. A shape coalesced from the shadows, elongated and indistinct, yet undeniably present. The creature, for lack of a better term, didn't move towards me, not directly. Instead, it seemed to exist at the periphery of my vision, a constantly shifting silhouette against the gloom. It pulsed with an unsettling energy, its form rippling like smoke caught in a draft. Fear paralyzed me, rooted me to the spot as I stared into the abyss of the unknown. The whispers, now a cacophony of soundless screams, reverberated through my bones. The attic itself seemed to breathe, walls warping and flexing around me as if struggling against some unseen force. My rational mind screamed for escape, for logic, for an explanation. But all I found was raw terror clawing its way up my throat. Then, as quickly as it appeared, the shape dissolved back into the shadows. The whispers faded to a low hum, The oppressive energy dissipated, leaving behind an echoing silence that felt even more profound than before. Shaking, I stumbled to my feet, heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. My gaze darted around the attic, searching for any trace of what I'd witnessed, but found nothing except dust motes dancing in the pale light filtering through the grimy window. I fled the attic, scrambling down the creaking stairs, each step feeling like miles. Back in my living room, reality felt distorted, fragile as spun glass. The familiar furniture seemed alien, the walls breathing with a hidden life of their own. My apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt like a cage. Days turned into a blur of insomnia and paranoia. I couldn't shake off the image of the shape in the attic, its unsettling fluidity imprinted on my mind. The whispers persisted, though fainter now, lurking at the edge of awareness, whispering secrets I couldn't understand. I tried to convince myself it was stress, exhaustion playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew something profound had shifted. One evening, as dusk settled over the city, casting long shadows across my apartment, I found myself drawn back to the tapestry on the wall. It seemed to beckon me, its colors pulsing with an unnatural vibrancy. As I stood before it, a sense of overwhelming dread washed over me. The forest depicted in the tapestry no longer felt whimsical. It was menacing, twisted, alive. The trees writhed like grasping claws, reaching towards me from the canvas. Then, something extraordinary happened. The image on the tapestry rippled, as if disturbed by an unseen breeze. The fabric itself began to shift and distort, the painted forest bleeding into reality. Branches reached out from the wall, thorns glinting in the fading light. The whispers intensified, coalescing into a single chilling word. Welcome.